Hello and welcome along to Adobe After Effects with your host Robert Smith. In this part 2 of creating a parallax look for presenting our work, I'm going to play around a little bit with these images. I just don't think they're in the right spot. In the first video we placed them here. I'm going to grab the Blues Fest one, and I'm just going to drag it with the position with the first number. I'm just going to drag it to the right a bit, so it's about there like this. I'm going to grab the hook, grab its X position like that and drag it over here so it's out of the way of that logo there, and that should be about right. That's what we want for our animation. Okay, so let's start animating. Now, to animate the camera sometimes gets unpredictable results. A better way of doing it, I'm just going to select all those layers and press the letter P to close up the position property. A better way of doing it is to use something called a null object. Now, how do we create a null object? Simply go to Layer, New, Null Object. Now, I've spoken about null objects in previous videos. A null object is just simply a nothing object that has properties. It's like a stylish way of grouping things together. So if I was to parent, that's the term they use, by grabbing this little pick whip thing and just dragging the camera onto the null like that, you'll notice it says null now. So this camera here, this layer, is now parented to this layer here. So whatever this layer does, the camera will do, and we'll see the result over here. So we only need one view to watch this. So I'll go back to one view like that, and here I'll put in fit up to 100% like that. So let's get to animating. I'll just open up the null objects transform properties. Now we'll notice it's still a 2D layer, which is no good, so I'm going to convert that to a 3D layer. Great, so now we've got the properties we want, and the two properties we're going to animate are position and Y rotation like that, and we might even put an X rotation just in case we need that later on. So I've put a keyframe at the start like this. I'm going to move along a little bit. It doesn't really matter how far. We can always adjust these distances later, but just for technical sake, I'll just drag that out and make that about 1 second long. That's where my current time indicator is now. Okay, now the first bit of animation we want this to go to the position of 75. Now, I've worked these numbers out before. They should be approximately right. All these numbers are always approximate. We can always tweak them later. 1588 like that, and as you can see, this is the poster we want to be looking at here, but it doesn't really look like it's in the right spot. So I'll just grab my X position, the first number here, and drag it to about there like that, and that's looking pretty good. That's what I want. So it brings that Blues Fest up to the front, which is exactly what we want. We want it to stay there for a little while. I think I might rotate that -1 here. Let's see if I need that. See what that does. Yeah, that straightens it up just that little bit in the Y rotation. I've just put a -1 number here. Okay, now I need to make that so it's in the same spot. Very nice. Okay, I need to copy those two keyframes now because we really want it to stay there for a little while, and I'll just paste those in like that. So let's watch what we've got so far. Well, notice we're getting the parallax look that the layers are traveling at different speeds, which is exactly what we want. Very nice indeed. Okay, we've looked at that, so now it's time to move the null object on, and this time in the second number I'm going to type in 665 and 3026 as a starting point. 3026, and again you just play around with these numbers, and I want to be looking at this logo. Now I really can't see it, so I'm just going to grab the X position and move it to the left a little bit just by dragging that number, and then the Y, move it down a little bit, so now it takes up the screen, which is what we want. It's now the highlighted. What if I was to play with this Y rotation just a little bit? Maybe, oops, that's a little bit too much. I'll Apple Z that back. Maybe just a little bit. Yeah, that's good, to maybe +5 like that. So let's have a look at this. Now don't forget, I'm just moving the null object. Comes there, stays there, it's what we want. Comes up and shows that one, so we need to keep that there for a little while. Copy those two keyframes, Command C, and Command V, paste. Okay, we've got one more move, so I'll move along a little bit, and this time I'm going to put a position of minus, again these are only starting spots, minus 181 there, like that. And this one here I'm going to make 4186, that'll do, 4186. And again, as you can see, I want to look at this over here, so that's not real good, so I'm just going to drag that across like this. I'm using the X position here, like that, so I can see my TLD, which is what I want. And I might even zoom in a little bit, like that. And one of the layers is getting in the way, so what we might have to do is move that out of the way. Move that down a little bit using those numbers. And this is what happens all the time, you have to really go in and tweak it. Okay, which one's that? That's the logo layer, so I'll just leave that there like that. And now I might actually go into my logo layer like this, and I'll transform it. And again, it's all about tweaking these things. Position, we don't want that, we just want it out of the way. I'll just move it down there like that. And sometimes you get lucky and you don't have to do that, but in this case, to show that properly, I really needed to animate that. So actually I might go back there and put a keyframe first before I move that. So I go to about here, and here I'm going to need a keyframe. Actually, I'll need a keyframe at this point here for position, and then I'll just drag it out a little bit, or drag it to the right a little bit. It'll be good. Now don't forget, I'm on the actual logo layer itself, not the null object. That's because the scene, it was getting in the way. And again, if you work these numbers out previously, you get a starting point. So let's go back to the start and see what that looks like, our animation. Here we are, animates into the first one, second one, and then the third one. So in it comes, stops, goes there, that's what we want. And now the third one. Okay, that's a little bit messy, that last bit, but that's because this is quite a tricky little scene we're animating here, but you get the idea. So let's summarize what we did in these two videos. Basically what you do is you set up your Photoshop document in 4 layers, bring it in here, put them out into Z space, place your camera into Z space, and as you can see, you get this fantastic look where things will animate and everything looks like it's moving, which is exactly what we want. Fantastic. And the trick, of course, is to use a null object, this thing here. Now, null objects need a lot of explaining and a lot of practice. It's not the sort of thing you get straight away. That's why this is an intermediate video. But you'll find nearly all the classy things that are done in After Effects are done with that null object. Okay, so happy parallax and happy tweaking. I'll see you in the next videos.